Hey, you've got this part of the video. You got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks Thursday night. It's the 10th of February. Mike, I feel like we've been gone for a month. It was just a week. It's so crazy. Just time, we went from things taking a long time to all of a sudden just going super fast. But if you're joining us, I saw you out there, Rick, for the first time. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. A couple things. One, if you're on the live page and you're wondering where the chat is, I guess it's actually down here. There's a link down there that'll take you to YouTube where the chat room is if you want to jump in there. But most of you who are in the chat room have already found it, so welcome. Good to see you guys. Mike, I am longing for summer already, and so I get the golden Frau, honey wheat.
Have you had this one before? Or is this
I
new?
think this is a New Belgium. Oh no, it's Thunderhead Brewing Company.
Never heard of them either. Are they local?
Thunderhead, Kearney, Nebraska.
Okay, well, we're relatively local.
Yeah, I just I'm kind of longing for a little bit of summer.
I like it.
That's what we're doing. We're doing tonight. You're beerless?
I'm beerless. I'm going water. I'm doing the Spartan race in Arizona at the end of this month, and so I've been getting the workout in, not drinking until then. So just kind of trying to get back in shape. It's been rough.
All right, well, we'll let you do that. Gavin, you got a Soda Stream? Is that what you're sporting tonight?
Yeah, I kind of like my Soda Stream here, and I'm sporting the new Pepsi flavor. I guess it came out earlier this year, so Pepsi released their own flavors for it. So it's pretty good. Nice. I like the Soda Stream though.
I had a soda today. I don't drink a lot of soda, but when I do, it's like I'm like, oh, this is so good and so dangerous. I could just drink it. Like it could become everything. I was doing, for a while, I was doing some intermittent fasting, and I was having a lot of success with that. And then Sarah bought some Lucky Charms, and that just ruined the whole thing for me. Like I can't stop thinking about
a good bowl of Lucky Charms.
They are so good. Why are they so good? That marshmallow loveliness
and the milk, the flavor of the milk after you finish it off. It's a flavored milk now at the bottom.
Yeah. I just can't. Like I get out of the shower, I'll get down, I get on the treadmill, get out of the shower, and I can't stop thinking about it. I'm just like, I gotta have some Lucky Charms. And it's like, what am I, 7?
All of a 7 or 7-year-old.
A little bit of golden Frau. This has been a good one. If you ever get a chance, Mike, it's because it's from Kearney, Nebraska.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's in everything here in Omaha. If you ever get a chance, it's really, really delicious. I just enjoy it. So we'll give it a taste here. Welcome everybody. Come in, and Bob. Good to see you, Kevin. Alex, Rick, Ken, good to see you guys.
Gavin, what other name brands are with SodaStream?
They mainly have their own, but I think Pepsi was. Yeah, Pepsi was a recent addition that as soon as they came on, I ordered a case of it, and it hasn't let me down.
Yeah. Jim, how's that one?
Bob says, sadly, sugar and intermittent fasting don't go well together, and they do not. They do not. I got to get back. I think, I was up probably 30 from the pandemic. I probably came back 25. I've probably given 10 of that or maybe 15 of it back over Christmas and Thanksgiving. So it's time to.
I am the worst offender. And I know it's so bad for your body. I go in swings of about 15 to 20 pounds every other month. Like it's just, it's not good. I'm just like, I'll be up 20 and then down 20, up 15, down 15. And it's like, oh man, I just go in these swings of trying to get, and the thing is for me, I need a motivation. So like Spartan race, like that is a reason to get fit. And then watch, March will be a rough month for me. And then we have a relay race in April and I'll get back into it. And
I was supposed to do Trek Up the Tower tomorrow, but they canceled it.
Did they?
Not tomorrow, but Saturday.
Yeah.
So 40 flights. So I was getting ready for that. And then they canceled that about, I don't know, a month ago. And that
pandemic related?
Just something. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
We were spiking at the time and they were just like, no, we're not going to do it. Let's see. Bob no, that's not, somebody had asked a question about the Soda Stream. Oh, Alex had. Gavin, how close is the Pepsi to a 2-liter or fountain soda?
It's not. I could taste the difference, but to be honest, I also taste the difference between pop in Canada versus pop in the US versus pop in the Caribbean, or I could taste the difference between a bottled pop versus a canned pop. So, I mean, it's still enjoyable.
What are the polar bears making it up there in Canada or something?
No, they actually use a different type of sugar. I think is it in the US they use the corn fructose.
corn.
Yeah.
Fructose, high
Where it's
fructose.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, where it's different up here, so you could taste the difference.
Coke from Mexico, same way. They use cane sugar on it.
Yes.
It just tastes different. So good. And then let's see, anybody else? I think Alex says I pretty much use my soda stream for just making seltzer water.
Yeah.
Since they never found a flavor that he liked. So well, there you go.
I go in waves. Sometimes I'll go with like the Pepsi. Sometimes I have a Sprite. Sometimes I'm into the diet wave. Sometimes I just like water, fizzed water. It's very flexible.
It's a good system. I mean, it allows you to kind of make what you want. So apparently Elon Musk scheduled some kind of silly update at 8:00. It's going on right now for Starship, whatever. I don't know why it would be more important than Home Gadget Geeks. I tried to contact him. Somebody tweeted that today. He didn't respond. So apparently, whatever. So I guess we'll find out more maybe after the show. Maybe chat room. Maybe somebody could be on the side just monitoring whatever they're talking about over there. I saw that on YouTube, and you can drop it in there. I'll catch it later. All right, we got a lot to talk about. Apparently, I didn't get 2 words in edgewise in the pre-show, so this I think this is going to be pretty good. So. Let me kick things off here. Guys, thanks for coming out. Going to be a lot of chance for a lot of questions in the chat room, so make sure you're hot on the keyboard. So Tony says he doesn't have any. He didn't have time for Elon. Whatever. Whatever. Okay, let's do this. Here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 523, recorded on February 10th, 2022. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios in fake spring. Mike, this is that trickery that's coming on, right? It's kind of faking us out.
Well, why is it during the week but not on the weekends? Like, I need to clean out my garage desperately. It is driving both Hannah and I nuts, and it's been 50s all week. It's going to be 25 on Saturday. And I'm like, come on.
Right? It's that time of year. Gavin, you're up north a little bit. Are you guys still in the dead of winter, or are you getting some fake spring like we're getting right now?
I think we're getting some fake spring right now. We got hit a couple weeks back with a lot of snow, so we ran out of places to put the snow.
Yeah.
But it's starting to melt. It was like 3 degrees Celsius.
Ooh, yeah.
Today, so it's starting to melt, but then it's supposed to go down to minus 20 Celsius next week. So it's up and down.
Well, it's that time of year. Don't get tricked if you're in the northern hemisphere. Don't get tricked. This is not really this is not the droids that you're looking for. We will see some more winter before things are done. And what you probably won't see. You want to go out and see some show notes. There won't be a lot of them, but out at the AverageGuy.tv. Couple reminders before we move on. One, we'll be back to the premiere on Saturday. So if you want to come out and watch this in its premiere status on YouTube, go to the AverageGuy.tv/YouTube. Follow, subscribe. That's the right word. Subscribe there on YouTube. But just join us at noon Central, and we get together, and there's some folks in chat. It's just a fun way. If you can't join us on Thursdays, it's a great way to do it. Saturday, noon Central on YouTube. Mike and I will do a live Discord show again on the 24th of February. Mike, is that going to work for you? Are you going to be around?
Pretty sure. Yeah, I leave the next morning.
Okay.
So yes, I'm here.
Good. So February 24th, 2022. If it's after that, you missed it. But we'd love to have you come out and join us live and then stay around for a Discord show. Just gives everybody a chance to kind of chat in that way. Big thanks to our Patreon supporters and subscribers as well for all that you do for us, and appreciate it. Gavin Campbell is with us again. Gavin, you started working with the Home Tech FM guys. Is that
yes?
Podcasting with the guys. Tell me a little bit. Well, one, welcome back, and then tell me a little bit about that.
Oh no, it's great to be back. But yeah, at the end of the year, Seth over at HomeTech.fm was a podcast I listened to religiously. He kind of was doing it by himself for a little while, and he was reaching out for some assistance. So TJ and myself both reached out to him and said, "Hey, this is what we have to offer. We're interested in getting into the podcast." And he accepted, and now the three of us do it. TJ, he's a pro installer. So he comes from that side of things. I'm a do-it-yourselfer, so I represent that, and Seth's kind of in between both. So the three of us together give us different angles to all the stories and stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. This show originally, 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, was Home Tech. That's what I called it. And then it would change the name. I was doing some work with Dave McCabe, and he formed the Geeks Network. And so I thought, well, maybe this is an opportunity to change the name of the show. And that's when we changed it to Home Gadget Geeks. We stayed, the Geeks Network didn't. But the name stayed around. And then I think, do you know how long they've been doing Home Tech .fm?
It's been a while. It's one of those podcasts I've been listening to for years.
6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Wasn't long after that I think they picked it up, and so good on them. Good podcast. So if you're looking for something else to listen to and you want to hear more of Gavin, you can head over to hometech.fm. And are you on that? Is that weekly? Or are you on every week? How are you guys doing that?
It's weekly. All three of us, we get together every week. We record usually on Wednesdays, and then it doesn't get posted till I think Friday, because Seth's a little lazy sometimes.
Well, I am too. To be honest. Listen, I did the YouTube premiere just surely to get the thing done. Like now I have a deadline. Noon on Saturdays, I got to have it done. So it got me thinking more on Fridays, like, okay, I need to get that video edited, get that thing up there. And I don't have to put a ton of work into it, but Mike, the deal, you get a full day of work in on Friday, and I'm kind of thinking I'd like to do something Friday night. Well, I got to edit the video.
Yep.
So it just takes some time. And well, congrats on the new gig. How is life as a podcaster? How are you handling that? How long have you been on, and how you feeling about it?
Well, we're probably 6th episode now. So we started at the beginning of the year. I'm enjoying it. It's kind of funny because after getting into podcasting like this, I've been listening to back episodes of Ask the Podcast Coach from Saturdays. Lots of valuable information for anybody thinking about podcasting. That's a great show to listen to. Answers a lot of questions. And, the funny part is I work on radio as well. And the radio, because of COVID, starting to pivot into remote broadcasting. And the stuff they're talking about now and what we're transitioning into is what podcasters have been doing for years. Right. So they're now starting to talk about what kind of mics to do at home and sound quality at home and remote broadcasting and internet. And I'm like, you know what? You guys need to listen to Ask the Podcast Coach, because they answer all these questions. And it's interesting.
Oh, thanks. Well, thanks. I just love hanging out on Saturday mornings with Dave Jackson, and we just have a good time. And it's a little different than it's more it's like this show. It's just kind of more opinion, chatter, lifestyle kind of stuff than your highly technical review shows. There's plenty of those. And I just enjoy getting together. So thanks for listening to that. Well, if you need a new podcast, if you're listening, you need another podcast to listen to, head out to hometech.fm and get subscribed on that as well. And Gavin, thanks for coming back. We want to spend some time tonight. This will be the last time you hear my voice. We want to spend a little time tonight talking about kind of security cam setup. And Gavin, you kind of went on a journey through this. You've been putting some new stuff in. Why don't you just get us started with kind of let's start us at the beginning. What were you doing? Why were you doing it? Just kind of get us going with what your project was.
My original beginning, I started off putting in Ring cameras. So a Ring floodlight, Ring doorbell. I grabbed Wise cameras, and my main reason for all that was it's the popular thing. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's recommending it. It was the popular thing to do. The Wise were so cheap. And it lasted a while, but I grew out of it. Like usual things, I will want to do more with it. And those ecosystems are so locked down. There's only so much I could do with it. So I'm no longer running those devices.
Well, okay. But before we move on to the more options, I'm a Ring guy, and I actually like the simplicity of it. Mike, you and I did some stuff with some cameras early on. I had some D-Link cameras where you could monitor and stuff. And it is a little bit of an endless hole. We're going to talk about that, like all the rabbit trails you can go down. And once I put Ring in, and, I can bring up, now Ring's website is really kind of the best place to go to monitor those. They're not live and in real time. So you're not seeing live shots of what's going on there, but about every 10 minutes, you get a refresh on some of those. I really like that. But Gavin, I get it. Because I hang around Wieger a lot, I get the fact you always like to be messing with the upgrade, and you like to be kind of expanding on it. Okay, so you thought, okay, I'm going to do something different. Keep going.
So I decided to do something different. So I started researching cameras that had open API because my requirements were I wanted to settle on a single brand. And I wanted that brand to offer all the cameras that I wanted. So I wanted a floodlight cam, a doorbell cam, and then just regular, what they call bullet cameras, and then even indoor cameras. So, and I wanted an API, and the API, I wanted something open that I can tap into, that I can use it for other things, integrate it with other things. So that was a lot of research there. A lot of cameras don't have this, or their API is half baked, or, and then later on, I also found out, make sure you get cameras with dual streams, and I'll explain why later. Right. So that was a key thing that I kind of lucked out when I also found the brand I settled with. So I had my requirements going in. And one of the requirements I was really picky on was the color temperature of the bulbs from the floodlight cams too. I like the bright white. I'm like the 5,000 Kelvin type person. A lot of people don't like that. Yeah, a lot of people don't like that, but I like that, and I want it to be uniform around the house. So I wanted it to look uniform. So that was another thing that I was looking at. And not a lot of brands have everything that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you get the feeling, and Mike chime in on this too, I think we're finally just now getting to the spot where the camera setups, like where you could probably go with one kind of camera or one family of cameras for all the stuff that you want to do, whether you want to go to the Ring route or go more of the DIY kind of stuff. Mike, you've looked through all these. Is that true?
Yeah. When it comes to those, I think I think most of the brands now are coming out with the majority of the different models and everything like that. Right. It's funny, Gavin, that you said you were wanting to be able to focus in on kind of one brand. My whole reasoning for going with the more advanced setup was to just have a melting pot. Like, hey, grab a cheap one from China, grab this, grab that. Doesn't matter because they're all open and I can run it. Long story short, I ended up finding a brand that worked for me, and I'm very curious to find out what your brand is. But something like Tony in chat mentions that his Simply Safe cameras are terrible, and I completely agree. So I love the Simply Safe security system, but their cameras are just, you can tell they're an afterthought. Their form factor is terrible. They never connect very well. So my doorbell, even I think I'm going to switch doorbells because the Simply Safe one, their video backend, whatever they're doing to capture video from all of their cameras is really bad. So I think some brands definitely better than others. I think Ring has this pretty much nailed down. You have Arlo, right, who are kind of known for being the completely wireless battery operated ones. So if you're okay swapping batteries and if you can get the signal strong enough, that might be a good option. So I think a few of them have their niches, right? Like Ring is the whole ecosystem. Arlo is wireless on battery. So I think each of them have a specialty, but in the end, I think they're all starting to expand to have all the different options. Even Simply Safe just added, an outdoor version of their camera, which they didn't have before.
I just get this feeling like we're starting to close in on those ecosystems, and they've just gotten a lot better. So Gavin, where did you land?
I ended up going with Foscam for all my cameras. They offered everything I wanted, and their floodlight cameras weren't looking like futuristic floodlight cameras, if that makes sense. They look like a normal floodlight with a camera on it. They have a open API integration, all local, dual streams. They met all my requirements, right? So in the end, I went with Foscam. I grabbed the floodlight. I have a bullet. I have indoor. I have also a doorbell, and it works really well.
And so I went the brand, and I haven't actually I've been wanting to install a floodlight, but I don't have anywhere on my house where that was like pre-installed and they're running the old version floodlight or anything like that. So I've been using Amcrest. That's kind of had really good luck with Amcrest. I think Reolink was the brand that I bought a few, and just, man, I was always having issues with Reolink ones, and it was especially with Blue Iris, like dropping frames and stuttering. You would view it in its web browser and it would be totally fine, but it would always have issues with Blue Iris or Sighthound. So I kind of settled in on Amcrest, but I will say I've had one Foscam camera and it was fantastic. It was just one of the indoor ones. And what I loved about it was just how crystal clear it was. I thought that one had some of the best image quality for what I was pulling in. Had decent audio, and it's funny, that one actually got left on and under a blanket and overheated, turned all brown and stuff on the back. This little one ran really hot, so I don't have that one anymore. I actually had no idea that Foscam had as many options until Jim you said it, Gavin, and then Jim was just scrolling through the website there. I didn't know they were as full featured. I probably need to look more into some of the Foscam options, because I really did enjoy the indoor one that I had.
I do have an Amcrest floodlight in the basement, because that was the first one I actually bought when I was doing through, because they have also an open API that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't like the color of the bulbs when I hooked it up and everything. It didn't match the rest of the house, and they don't offer the bright white version of it. So I kind of went back to researching, and that's when I landed on Foscam.
So how many did you end up buying?
Like all my projects, I break it out. I look for deals. I wait till it goes on deals. When there's a deal, I buy one, maybe two. In total, I have about 10 cameras. And it's a mix of different types of cameras, and some of them I sourced from the States, some of them I got from in Canada.
Why just price? Is it US versus Canada? Is it just based solely on price?
I couldn't get some of them in Canada. The floodlights I can't get in Canada, but I ordered them from Foscam Mall, where the indoor cameras I got from AAR Tech, which are our local smart home dealer that's very popular up here. So it was just a matter of sourcing it. So I monitor the website, and they went on some crazy deals. And whenever they did that, I'd grab one or two. And I did that over time, and I got everything at least some kind of discount.
Is this a good deal? So there's this buy one, get one free, this Foscam G2,
Yep.
1080p Wi-Fi surveillance home cam, $70 for two. Is that a pretty good
Yeah,
deal?
they always have deals. So like that's the deal right now, but they had that similar deal before on other cameras too. I have one of the pan tilt ones. It's really good. Even the Foscam floodlight there, it's 140 right now. I think I got it at 110. Right. So the weird thing about their website is the prices fluctuate. They keep going in there and adjusting it. So it's been as high as 170 for that floodlight. I got it at 110, and I just bought a few of them at a time. So you just keep refreshing every day, and you'll see it change.
Kind of keep checking. Did you go with the doorbell as well?
Yep, I got the doorbell as well.
Okay.
The doorbell. Okay, that's what I need, and that's what I need right there. Is probably that doorbell. How much is that one? 120. That's not bad.
30. But
Okay.
but what you're saying is keep looking, like they're moving prices around all the time. This
Yeah, so that's not the sale price right now, but then you can see you save an extra $30 when you apply the coupon above.
There you go. Look at that.
So look, I just saved you $30 by pointing that out. Right? Click buy.
$99, Wieger.
Yeah.
You'll have it bought and installed by the end of the show.
Probably. Well, and the one thing I was going to mention is what I love about people like Foscam and Amcrest is they give you options. So the Wi-Fi version, in my head and my house, the way it's set up, if I'm going to put a camera up, I'm going to do PoE, just because if I'm going to have to run a wire for power anyway, I might as well have that be Ethernet and have it not have to clog up all my airwaves. And Wi-Fi, we all know Wi-Fi, right? It can be spotty, and especially on the outside of your house, you're getting pretty far away from your access points. So I would always go wired, but I do have two areas where there's just not a good way to get Ethernet run without getting really complicated. So I two of my cameras are Wi-Fi, and I actually have my own. I have a SSID coming off my Unify gear that's just for cameras, because that's on a separate VLAN with no internet access. But I love that they give the different form factors, because that is key, because in some areas you're just not going to be able to run a wire. But anywhere you guys can run a wire, even if it's going to be a weekend project, I highly recommend getting into that attic, spend a weekend, just run the Ethernet, get a cheap, I have, like, in my attic, I have a super cheap TP-Link PoE switch. It's only 8 ports, but it does the job. And you know what? If it burns up, I think it was only like $30, $35 or something like that. I would recommend running the wire if you can. Do you have a mix of Wi-Fi and wired? Are you all wired?
I think 90% of them are wireless.
Oh, really? So you're the opposite of me.
I'm the opposite, because it was hard to get wires to where they are, right?
Yeah.
But I had power where they all are. But to get an Ethernet to them, I didn't want to invest in that. But I also have really good Wi-Fi coverage in my house with my Unify setup. right? And I offload anything else that's heavy loading on is wired. So it's just my cameras that are heaviest things on my Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yeah. And I am really lucky. All my eaves go into my attic, which is accessible from my garage, with actually a decent amount of room up there. The guy before me had laid down kind of some wood up there, so you can walk around, you can put storage. So I just got super lucky that mine's all pretty. I have a smaller house, ranch style, easy to get up there, easy to put all your cameras. And that's the other thing about a ranch style home. And you'll probably talk about this, is camera placement is really important. Sometimes in an eave of a 2-story house, that's too high and not as usable, right? As that person gets close, you're at a very bad angle. You're looking at the top of their head. So you talk about the different aspects of security systems, and identification is a big part of that. If you can get into that zone, and yeah, so it's just I kind of got lucky. I kind of got the perfect house for a DIY install of these cameras.
Well, and you got a sweet patio in the back. That's also a good.
I do like the patio in the back.
It's
That's a sweet. I have 2 cameras watching that back patio. Yeah,
sweet patio in the back. It's for me. I mentioned I'm on Ring, and I have 3 cameras, and I really want a 4th, not for extra security, but because I have this big gap on when I'm viewing the cameras, like 1, 2, 3, and then there's a square that just is begging for a camera. So because I'm a completist and I like those kinds of things that way, I'm like, I just got to buy another camera. And then I think, where would I put it? Like, there's not another spot for me that would really kind of make sense. So sometimes we get a little silly on those kinds of things. However, I do have a Slick Deals alert set for it, just so I can get it when it gets there. Gavin, do they have their own software? What are you using then? So you've got these cameras around. What are you using to kind of monitor it and record it and some of those kinds of things?
So they do have their own software, and one of the reasons why I wanted to settle on one brand is because when you settle on one brand, it's easier to support it. So you'll know the updates, you'll understand the updates, easier to track updates and things like that, or things that go wrong. That brand inside out, where I don't want to do that for 10 different brands. But they do have their own software. It's pretty good. The only thing I don't like about it is it pushes their cloud offering a bit too much in the software. So seeing the local recordings off the cards is a few more clicks in it. But it actually looks and runs pretty well. But I actually use Blue Iris. All the cameras are fed through Blue Iris, and I use the Blue Iris app and software for everything.
Extra charge for that, or how does that work?
For the Foscam software?
To use the Blue Iris software.
Oh, the Blue Iris is always going to cost you more money. So you have to invest in hardware first to run it on. And then the license for Blue Iris is, I think it was $50. I got a deal. Canadian. That's Canadian. So everything I talk about is in Canadian dollars and in Celsius. Just remember that.
No, just discount it a little bit. If it's $50, then it's $40 US or whatever. It's usually
that would be interesting. I haven't done a price comparison recently. I know there is the upfront investment to do something like Blue Iris is heavy, right? Because you need the hardware to run it on. I think a lot of us, home gadget nerds here, we have maybe a server running you could spin up a VM on, or we have that extra Optiplex box collecting dust that we could put it on. But if you don't, there is a cost there. There is the cost for Blue Iris. But overall, the cameras I think are much more affordable than you're going to pay for Ring, and then no monthly subscription, which is kind of nice. So over time, I think it's, if it is something you're going to keep around for a while, it could end up saving you money in the future, depending. I've always liked the cheaper camera options. The Amcrest ones I go with, the 4K ones, are usually around $70. If you catch them on a sale on Amazon, between $50 and $70, which is a pretty good deal for some of these.
Sign up for their mailing list, the Amcrest mailing list, if you're interested in those, and just wait. They're gonna email you deals almost weekly, and you just grab them when you see them.
That's good, because I have 2 more old ones that aren't Amcrest yet that need to go. They need to get replaced in the back. It's actually the ones that are on Wi-Fi right now. Jim, I'm still running that D-Link camera. It still runs out. It's been outdoors for years. It's on that back patio. Now it's covered. It doesn't get wet. But it's still outdoors. Nothing.
I think I got rid of the 2 that I had. They were causing a huge Wi-Fi interference here.
Oh, really? I can see that.
Yeah. So they were. I just was like, I'm not gonna. When we put Ring in, Ring just wouldn't work very well, and it was just by mistake. I turned off those cameras, and all of a sudden it started working, and I was like, what the? So I started doing some looking into it, and then I ran some kind of Wi-Fi analyzer and just realized these things were being super noisy.
Yeah, they
And
are.
so on the Wi-Fi space,
Because
and
they
so
never stop spitting out their own Wi-Fi network,
yeah,
even when they're connected to a different Wi-Fi
right,
network. It's
yeah, they're
weird.
just super noisy. So
I
looks like
will put.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I will put one link too in the chat to a video. There's a guy on YouTube called The Hookup, and he's really good. He does a lot on these sort of cameras and Blue Iris, and he was actually, I think Gavin's going to talk here a bit about his setup. And when I was first learning about this, this was the guy I learned from. But he has a recent video, just came out 2 weeks ago, on kind of common mistakes people make when they're first getting into home security cameras. And I think it would be a really good video for people to watch. One of the things he covers is kind of the four main elements when you're thinking about, putting your zone. So if you were to look top down on your house and your property, right? If you're looking at a Google Maps view of your property, he has you have detection, observation, recognition, and identification. So the outer perimeter, you just need detection. Are there things coming into my property that I should just know they're there? That's detection, right? So that's your furthest out zone. And as they get a little bit tighter, then you need the what is that? When I say observation, detection on the outside, and then as they get closer, it's observation, right? Okay, now I need to start looking at what are they doing? They've kind of come into my property. Are they just walking on the sidewalk? Are they getting into my trash bins? What are they doing? And then you start getting into the identification portion of this. So recognition would be, I already know someone. Oh yeah, that's Jim. I can see that's Jim. I know him. But it's someone you know of, right? And then there's identification, and that's your closest in zone. They are at my door, and I need to if I could turn this footage over to the cops, if they do something, they're going to be able to identify them. But the reason he kind of goes through those zones is that kind of helps you decide what type of cameras you need and where you need certain types of cameras. And I think, Gavin, you'll probably talk about this. But the types of cameras you use for that, just that general detection zone, is way different than identification zone, right? Because those are going to be different cameras, maybe wide angle versus very focused in, those sort of things. So I'll put a link to that. I'll have Jim put it in the show notes. It was a really, really well done video where I thought he covered camera placement. He talks about, a lot of people tend to, you're showing way too much sky. You don't need any sky in your camera, to tilt those down, those sort of things. So that'll be a good video for people who are just getting started, no matter what brand you go with. If you're going with a self-hosted system, if you're going with a cloud system, just in general, really good security camera video.
My doorbell is seeing sky, but I can track the moon on it as it traverses.
So it's worth it.
It's kind of cool. Blue Iris looks like 70 US. That's full price. 70 US for their full version, and then they have a light version for 35. 15-day demo if you want to give it a try. Bob was asking this question. Gavin, I'll throw it to you. What's a really good night camera with about 100-foot range? Presumably, that's like 30 meters. Presumably, IR blaster built in, PoE to be used with Blue Iris. Any thoughts?
Honestly, it's hard to say because I haven't tested every camera out there.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's almost like you got to look at reviews and do a lot of research to find out what exactly you're looking for. I've seen people say don't use the IR in the camera, put something off to the side to help with that, and it helps eliminate things like snow and rain too, triggering alerts. You kind of have to look at the reviews and see what people but thinking of a zone too, you just want detection at that range too, right?
Yeah.
So you could go with a 4K camera, you could go with a 2K camera. You just want to see something's happening out there. Right, you're not trying to read the license plate at that distance, probably.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, this is where it's really specific to your property, what you're expecting to come in. That we have low fences in our backyards. I mean, the whole neighborhood is one big backyard basically, and it's just low fences. The low chain link fences. Well, I am worried about people coming through that from that direction, right? Because it's easy. There's the barrier to entry is pretty easy. So I do protect my back door, and I've got a camera on it just in case we see it that way. But I know some folks where, they might back up to a field, or they've got a really high fence, or they, and it's maybe not a concern. You don't have to go out as far with it. So I think every situation's a little bit different. Gavin, when you were doing this and switching, Did you go through a scenario where you might have optimized, like, oh, I learned when I had this didn't really work very well. I want to put a different camera in now that I know what I'm doing. Did that give you an opportunity to kind of upgrade some of those cameras in those areas maybe where it wasn't covering it before?
Well, it gave me the opportunity, like when I first had the Ring and the Wise, it gave me the opportunity to know what I really wanted in a camera,
Yeah.
right? Like
Mhm.
the Ring and the Wise were like, I just want a camera at this point. And then after a while, it was like, well, what doesn't it do for me that I want it to do for me?
Mhm.
You know, I didn't like the color of it, the light temperature of it. I didn't like the integration options of it, you know. And I'm not knocking Ring or Wise; they're great cameras. Wise has one of the best night vision cameras in their Wise V3. It's a beautiful camera. And I actually installed Ring at my mom's house. She has all my Ring cameras now, you know, and I gave my sister all my Wise cameras. So they're, you know, they're all being used still. It's just, I just want to take it to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right. That's what we do. We
Yeah.
take it to the next level. Right. That's what we do. So you've got 10 cameras.
Yes.
You're bringing them in. You're using Blue Iris for that.
Yep.
What's walk us through a little bit of like, is every camera real time all the time? Are you recording every single second? Walk us through that. What do you kind of keep?
So my hardware I'm running on a really old PC. It's probably another 10-year-old PC, an i5 maybe. And it doesn't have any special video card or anything in it. I threw SSD for the main operating system in there, and I threw a Western Digital Purple drive to handle all the recordings for storage. And that's my setup. Now I have 10 cameras that feed into that. All 10 of those cameras are recording all the time. Right. So I have on the drive, I have about 4 TB. I get about 3 weeks worth of recording. Right. But I also have in Blue Iris, you can create copies of the cameras. Right. So I have the original cameras or the recording cameras, and I kind of hide those away. And then I have the copies that then now do the triggers and the alerts. So when you're using the app, you're not seeing the full-time recordings. You're just seeing the alert. And if anybody ever comes to me and says something happened on our road at this time or whatever, I can then go back to the full-time recordings. We don't monitor those, but they're there just in case something happens.
So the camera, when you're looking at your monitor and it's got all the cameras on it, it's just showing the last time the camera had an alert on it.
Yeah, well, if
right?
I'm looking at my monitor, I see the real-time feeds.
Okay.
Right. But when you're using the app and everything and it shows the alerts, it's only showing the alerts, not the recordings.
Yeah, and that's very different than Ring, right? With Ring, you're always looking at just some snapshot. You can kind of configure that, but some snapshot from 5 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago or whatever. And the alerts, I wish that would kind of on the website, I wish it would tell me if it had an alert, so I would know to go click on it, right? That kind of deal. There are some, in the app, you get the little number that's up there, so you can kind of see, oh, there's 3 or 4 alerts there. So it does work in that way. Okay, well, that kind of makes sense. That purple drive, though, that you said 4 TB, right? 4 TB purple drive. That thing's got to be getting slammed to have that much real time recording, right? Is it handling it pretty well?
It's been handling it perfectly fine. Like that computer just buzzed along just fine. It's meant for that though. The purple drives are meant for the NVRs. So that's why I went with the purple drive, because they are meant for constant recording like that.
Yeah, purple are those security drives, and I do the same thing even through Sighthound. But so mine is a VM on Unraid. Ring the bell. I said Unraid. But mine's running on a VM. And I just have
let
one.
the horse out of the barn.
I did. But I don't have it writing to the array. I just have one unassigned disk. It's just a 4 TB spinner in there, and that 4 TB spinner is only used by that VM just to store footage. But because Jim, I was kind of concerned with you. I didn't want the array being all the wear and tear on the array drives. So I just threw in one of my oldest 4 TB drives, because realistically that thing could reset every day and odds are I'd be just fine. Like, well, what are the odds? I have to go look through, except for when that car came driving through my front yard the other week. That was really nice to have 4 different camera angles of that guy.
Did anything become of that? Did they find anybody?
Sadly not. They did not find anyone. They'd caused havoc throughout the entire neighborhood and never got the guy. So none of us had good enough angles on the on the
You
license
need to put
plate.
some tank things in your yard now.
Yeah,
so
some anti-car things. I do. Well, because it's so funny. The
disguise
cracks
them
are
as
still there. I was just yesterday
really.
out with my neighbor
Yeah.
looking, and we're like, just wait till in the spring we turn our sprinkler systems, and I guarantee we'll have some busted
Ooh,
heads
yeah.
from him driving to the lawn. So, but yeah, I do the same sort of thing. Just that one drive, and I'm surprised those drives last forever. I mean, I've been using the same 4 terabyte drive ever since I started self-hosting security cameras a few
Just
years
don't
ago.
turn it off, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Just don't have it stop. The fact that it just loves being spun all the
it
time.
just keeps. Are those high speed drives? Or are those low speed drives? Do you know?
They're 5400s.
So they're low speed.
Yeah,
drives.
yeah. They're not. They don't need to be performance drives. Just right in
Right.
storage.
Right. And those 5400s, the Seagate version, they call them something cool, extra cool, something cool, because they run slower. They run the heat wise. They just don't
Yep.
generate
Interesting. I didn't think about
heated
that.
drive. So if you've got something spinning all the time, there is some value to having it not spin as fast. It creates less heat. Drive lasts a little bit longer. I bought a bunch of those when I was doing some, crypto mining on hard drives. I favored those drives because they're spinning all the time, and they use a little less energy that way too, as well. So Gavin, how long are you holding on to your video footage? Because I imagine with 4 terabytes you could get quite a bit on there before it goes away. How long do you keep stuff for?
Well, I just have it to use the drive, so however long I get, and I think I get about 3 weeks of full-time storage, and then plus all the notifications, and it will auto clean out the old stuff and put the new stuff in.
Does it
That's
give you
good
like
for
a
3
percentage?
cameras or 10 cameras. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I was expecting 3 days.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to be like, well, it's like 72 hours, but really it's like 24. But no, that's a lot. So what's the res? Are all the cameras different resolution, or is it all the same?
They vary. I have some that are 2K. I think most are 2K. I think some of the indoor ones are even lower than that, and I think I have one 4K camera. So it's all varies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and this is where Gavin and I were chatting, in pre-show, because kind of the two of the main players are Blue Iris is like the end-all be-all, most powerful, most popular, and then there's Sighthound, and you guys have heard me mention that. So the difference in storage is on Sighthound, you set the amount of time you want everything saved for. So every single second, no matter if it detects anything, whatever, it's going to save. So I have that set to 72 hours. And then after that, it's rolling those 72 hours and deleting, and then it's just saving anything that you told it to. So I have it save any movement of anything, because even when a car drives by, I don't care, just save any movement. And that saves a ton of space, because I've got 8 cameras, and I think my storage is still not full, and it's been going for a couple months. So it's just different ways to store that, right? When you're only storing 72 hours of every second, and then you're just doing 10-15-second clips whenever something moves, makes a big difference. And so that was one thing that I was trying to tweak with Blue Iris. And there are definitely ways you can do it. You could, your long storage could be from a sub stream, right? We talked about having 2 different streams. There's a couple different ways you could do that. But that was one of the things I did like about Sighthound was their storage option.
Gavin, from an optimization standpoint, because when we talked to you last time, you write code, you write stuff with Unraid as well. So out of the box, what kind of customizations? I shouldn't say out of the box. After you took it out of the box and installed it, what kind of customizations did you did, or how'd you learn how to optimize? Because that's a lot of network traffic.
1 second, I need to get my notebook first, because I know I'm going to be taking a lot of notes during this section. This is the part I've been most excited for. I want to hear the good stuff, all the tweaks you've made, the custom stuff you've done.
Well, one of the things people don't realize is they'll just add a camera to Blue Iris, and they'll add all their cameras on, and then they start complaining that the CPU is getting running at 90%, 100%, right? There is an article I can give you guys later for the show notes on IP Cam Talk, I think it is, about optimization. And I highly recommend, if you're running Blue Iris, read this article and implement everything it says. It took I was stubborn at first too. I admit my CPU was running at 90%, and I was like, oh, this program sucks. No, there's tweaks in there, and it brought it down from 90% down to 20% with 10 cameras.
Wow.
Recording 24 hours plus notifications plus deep stack, right? So two of the key things is in that article is when you turn on direct to disk recording, very important to tweak that. and then using the substreams, adjusting the substreams. That's where a lot of the utilization goes down. Very important to do everything that article says, and you will be a happy camper. I didn't believe it at first, and I just, dove right in and said, I'm going to do everything they say. Reducing the frame rate, key thing there too, because, on security cameras, you don't need a high frame rate. You just need, like, you can reduce it and you won't even notice it. And it helps with the CPU utilization as well.
So the cameras out of the box are 30, 60 on a frame rate, or
yeah, and you can reduce it down to like 15,
okay,
and it still looks great. And then there's something called keyframes that you can set to 1, and it still looks great. You will never notice, but it reduces the utilization on the PC, and it's important.
And you can mess with the bit rate too for file size. I noticed that
Yes.
was always a big way. And it's always that balance on bit rate and frames per second and the keyframes, just making sure you get them right so you don't get any stuttering.
it gets too pixeled. If it gets too pixeled too, right? I mean, there's some of those things happen. Mike, think about that car going across the front of your lawn. That's happening pretty fast. And if you're reducing the frame rate, you may miss the frame that has the license plate in it. Right.
And that's where Sighthound versus Blue Iris. Sighthound takes more of an Apple approach. We're gonna deal with all of the settings for you.
They do,
You just come in, tell us the camera, tell us how long you want to store footage, but you don't try and go into the hood, and don't try and do PTZ, and don't try and do two-way communication, and don't try and get too fancy with this. Use our detection and our algorithms. Don't be trying to integrate anything else. And Blue Iris is like the Android approach, right? Where just all the power you could ever want. Gonna take you a little bit more time maybe to set it up, and you're gonna be able to tweak those things if you like to tweak them. And that's where Blue Iris really shines, is when you start playing with this stuff, getting really good optimization, really good storage, really good just overall CPU utilization. That is where Blue Iris really does start to show how powerful it can be.
And one more key tip too. I didn't discover this till afterwards with my cameras, but my cameras were sending an H.265 stream, and my computer was struggling with that. And I didn't know what to do. And then I found out somebody mentioned it in a forum, and there's a setting on the camera itself to say this camera is part of an NVR. And at that point, it switches over to H.264. And the computer deals with that a lot better, because I didn't have a graphics card in there to handle decoding and coding. So that also was huge. That's not mentioned in the article. So if your camera, look at what your camera is spitting out. If it's spitting out H.265, it might be worth just going with H.264. And you have the hard drive space, so I wouldn't worry about that, right? And it will help with the CPU as well.
That's a good catch, because those codecs are different.
Yes.
And so, that would make sense. Any other optimizations, Gavin, in there that anything else you can think of that you did that where someone's setting this up that you're like, oh yeah, I learned this and it's super important? Anything else?
Those were the key things in terms of getting the CPU utilization down. And that's the one mistake a lot of people make, is they don't really pay attention. And it will kill your CPU if you don't make these, especially with the substreams. And that's why I say it's very important, if you look at cameras, get cameras with the dual streams, because it will use one stream to record all the time, and then it will use a less the second stream that's not as good of a quality to do all its processing on, and it keeps the CPU down.
And so I want to know, there was two things that you had mentioned in the show notes and before the show. One was deep stack, right? So motion detection, determining what is it that's moving across. And you talked about some moving between zones, and then obviously integrating this with your TV sounded really cool, getting that to pop up. Those are two things I got to hear about.
Which one do you want me to start with?
And start with, well, I think deep stack is important, because I think deep stack, like if you're going to use Blue Iris, I think deep stack is like a requirement at this point to have a really, really good experience, right?
Yeah. So deep stack, if for those not familiar, is AI integration with Blue Iris. So it will do like identification of objects, right? And it's a really cool concept, because it will send frames from the camera. It's very configurable as well. You can get dirty with
open source, right?
Yeah, it's open source, and it integrates well with Blue Iris, and it sends frames from the camera and then analyze it, and it will say, yep, that's a dog. Yep, that's a cat. Unless you have a small dog like me, it's always a cat or a bird, right? That's the only thing, right? But it's a great product. It does add CPU utilization. So if you ever go with deep stack, another word of advice, only enable it on the cameras you want it to be enabled on. So if you want it enabled only on like your front door for face recognition, put it on that door only. Don't put it on all the other cameras where you just want motion, right? So it's really good. It's really easy to set up and configure, and you can even get deep into it by using custom models. Some people post custom models where they basically gather a whole bunch of their own pictures and train it so that it knows how to recognize dogs better, or it can recognize objects in the dark better. There's dark models specific, so it'll pick up things better in the dark. So, you know, you might want to look into that if you ever go down. It's another rabbit hole you can go down.
No, but that idea is really, really cool, you know, where you're getting some help. Like, yeah, this picture, we wouldn't normally recognize it, but this is definitely a dog. And then it can help pick up on that. I imagine that additional utilization, is it sending those pictures to their service that, or it's done in the processing is done on
locally?
Your end? Okay.
It's all locally, because the models you can download, you put in the deep stack folder, etc., etc.
And does deep stack come with a set of models already, and you can add to it? Okay. So
it comes with default models, but some people have better luck with their own custom models, and they train their own stuff. And I mean, you can get really dirty where you can see how it processed that video when you got an alert to see how it identified it and what model was identifying it, and that's how they train it better.
Mike, when we were working with Sighthound, they're doing this on the server side, I think, right? On their server side. And they've got some crazy, I mean, that you can see the boxes around, and then you can see it processing, kind of like, hey, this is okay, it's a dog or whatever. That's fascinating.
That's doing it on your local machine.
It's local there too.
On Sighthound, it is. What Sighthound's doing is Sighthound kind of switched their focus. They came out with this product, being Sighthound Video, the NVR, and then they really kind of pivoted their business to being server cloud hosted AI, kind of that sort of modeling for, you know, companies would send the data there, it gets analyzed, it gets sent back, and providing that sort of system. And so now they've promised to bring all the improvements they've made back to the Sighthound Video application, and maybe they'll end up doing that someday. They've been promising it for a few years. They also said they were shutting down their forum like 2 years ago, and I think it's still up. So I don't know. That is one thing I'll forewarn people. Before you fork out $250 for the unlimited license version of Sighthound, just know that the history of updates has been slowing dramatically. So I'm very happy with the product the way it is. And the good thing about Sighthound, actually, the thing I didn't mention, it runs on Mac. So that is another reason. If you are a Mac household, Blue Iris does not run on a Mac, I don't believe. But Sighthound will run on a Mac and Windows.
Gavin, when you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but of course you live in a land of snow, lots of snow. Sometimes I've not actually had any problems with rain or snow on the Ring cameras of getting a false. You alluded to it earlier. Have you had any? So now that you've had these for a little while, do you have any problems with weather related? Sometimes I get alerts based on shadows.
Yes,
sounds kind of weird, right? But it thinks the shadow is something. Have you had any problems with those so far?
That's always one of the tough things when it comes to like these cameras and motion alerts and stuff like that. Yes, snow and rain is a tough one, mainly because the IR sensors in the camera are right in front of where the lens is. So all those things are bright, you know, it sees it. Some people say what you can do is turn off the IR on the camera and get an external IR and set that away from the camera somewhere, like a couple feet away, and use that to illuminate the area, and the camera will still see perfectly fine. You probably get even better video doing it that way.
That's a really good idea. Like you mentioned that earlier, and I thought, yeah, that is I should like, and it wouldn't take a lot to have just a separate IR camera plugged in somewhere, right, away from the camera, flooding the area. You could put it. It's almost, you can't see it when you're outside. You can't see it. Like we don't pick it up, but you can just basically flood the area, and that would help the cameras. Mike, have you thought about that? Have you had any trouble with your IR stuff? Because especially if it's behind a piece of glass.
Oh, right? For sure. I don't even know how you got away with that one for as long as you did. The IR is it's a very It's a learned thing. You got to experience it and figure out how your yard works, and how your system works. The one thing that I've kind of learned with IR is kind of what Gavin said: play with other ways of getting light into the area, besides using the IR. And also, just IR bounces off things, right? So if your camera can even see a glimmer of like the wall it's next to or the eave, it bounces right back into that camera and washes everything out. Right. And so you're going to be done there. So IR is a very finicky thing. There are a few new cameras that are trying to do color night vision, which is kind of intriguing and kind of interesting. From what I've read, I haven't used one of these, but from what I've read, might be better just to stick with regular IR for those, needing it in color versus having a clearer image and a more decipherable image. That IR might work a little better. But this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? With observation, detection, recognition, identification. What are you trying to do for each individual scenario? I have not even considered the idea of blasting with some sort of other IR light. I've been trying to blast it with regular light, and I'm sure my neighbors are getting a little upset with me by really lighting up the outside of my house. But I didn't even think about the IR. That's a great idea.
And another thing I've done to help eliminate when it comes to snow and rain. So snow, it comes from the top down, right? Sometimes on my camera, I'll see it go sideways a little bit depending on the wind. So with Blue Iris, you can create zones, right? And what I do is I create like a zone at the bottom and a zone in the middle, right? And I say only trigger if something goes from zone at the bottom to the zone at the top. So snow coming down will not trigger it, but my dog running out the door will trigger it.
That's smart.
Right. And I got around that from triggering my cameras in snowstorms and rainstorms. Every now and then I get a little snowflake that goes down and back up again and triggers it. It depends on the wind, but it eliminated most of my things using zone crossing.
Yeah.
I was just thinking my one intriguing one is my camera. I have a camera right out in my backyard, but where it's positioned, I didn't even think about this because I set this up in the summer. Winter came around. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what is it? Looks like smoke. Look at that smoke on fire out there. It's right above where my dryer vent exits out, and that humidity just hits the cold air and goes straight up, and it literally just looks like smoke. So that camera's pretty much useless in the wintertime. Anytime my wife's doing laundry, because it's just, it's all smoked out. Looks like we have a house fire going on. But that was an interesting one. That one took me a second. At first when I saw it, I'm like, I have no idea what's causing that. Then I was like, oh yeah, that's where the dryer vent comes out.
We always see the neighbor's cat smudge come across our deck. He kind of owns the neighborhood. So he comes in the summer. He's laying all over the place. We get all these smudge pictures of him out there. Gavin, I lured you away from this question, but Mike wanted to hear about it showing up on your television. So what are you doing? Alerts go off. Talk a little bit about what you're doing there.
So Blue Iris has the ability to integrate with a lot of stuff. You can get, if something triggers it, you can have it act on that trigger. So all my TVs in my house, they run off the front end I use is Kodi, and that's the front end to it. My back end server is actually MB, but I use Kodi as the presentation. And one of the features in Kodi, I have a plugin that I wrote that will take a call and get a stream URL and then display that in a little corner of the TV. So what happens is somebody comes to my front door and they ring the doorbell. That triggers on my Habitat hub that, hey, the doorbell rang. Send that call over to Kodi, and then Kodi connects to my Blue Iris and pulls in the feed and shows you on the screen until you dismiss it, right? And it shows up on all the TVs or whichever TVs are on at the time. And I do something similar with zone crossing, whereas if somebody's walking up my driveway towards my house, it will do the same thing, and I can see it'll send the driveway feed to the TV so I can see someone. But if they're walking down the driveway or it's other motion, it won't trigger because I only use it if they're walking up. And you can even use the AI and say if it's a person walking up, then trigger, that type of stuff.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's genius.
For those out there that say I don't use Kodi, I have Android front ends. I've seen on Reddit people mention being able to do this on Android using another app. I don't remember the app, but I'm pretty sure if you look for it over on Reddit, Home Automation, you'll see them mention this other app that does the same thing. It will take a feed, it will show it in the corner on your Android box, and then disappear after a certain amount of time.
What this got me thinking of too was the one feature I do kind of think is pretty cool with like Ring. I think it's Ring. Does Google own Ring? Is that the one they own, or
No,
Nest? Or
Amazon owns Ring
or
and
Amazon.
Google owns Nest.
Yeah. So on either of those, where you ask the device, show me the front door camera, and if you have one of them with the screen, it just shows it. Like, I think that's pretty handy. Because what do? Is I pull out my phone and I go to that one camera and I see it. And you know what that got me thinking? I was like, how far are we for, so we self-host DeepStack, right? In a Docker container or in Windows or whatever. Are you running on Windows? But is that what all this is running
It's on
on?
Windows. Yeah, it's on a Windows box.
Will we be able to self-host like a smart device and have essentially like a home assistant that never goes outside the bounds of your network? Because man, that would just be really, really cool to have kind of a self-hosted smart device and then you could integrate it with your Blue Iris and pull from all your locally hosted stuff. I'm sure there's got to be a project out there being worked on.
So you're you talking about like self-hosting a smart hub or something, a hub?
Essentially, yeah. Like think of like a self-hosted lady Alexa, right?
Oh, you're talking like audio, a voice
audio,
yeah,
where she's responding, but you're doing all that processing in the home
locally. And
so if
there
for people who are worried about tracking and the recordings of everything going on in your home, like if you had a self-hosted version that never left the bounds of your network, that'd be pretty interesting. And then I could think, everything that you're doing to integrate with the TV, that's all happening because it's in your LAN. And I'm like, oh man, okay, well then you could start, really having some fun. I don't know. I that was the first time I'd ever thought, that would be a good use case for local self-hosted assistant.
So if you're interested in that, people have projects out there, but there is one commercial product called Josh.ai. But it's out of our probably out of our salary range, right? That's all I have to say. I looked at it, but they do have self-hosting. It's all integrated in the home. It has AI built in. It learns your ways, or it has its own language and stuff like that. You have to buy it through a dealer, but it's a really cool looking product. I can't afford it, but it exists if you're ever looking for that.
Alex says Apple HomeKit plus HomeBridge will do that. Is there an integration on Habitat for I know you're a Habitat guy, right? Yep. Gavin, do you have this integrated in with Habitat at all and have any actions going?
Yeah, I have it fully integrated with Habitat. So all my cameras show up, and I wrote this integration myself, so I don't know if there's one in the community, but all my cameras show up in Blue Iris as devices that have motion and audio sensors, right? So I can act on motion and audio as needed. So like one of the things I do is if motion is in the backyard from anything, right? Turns on all my backyard camera, all my backyard lights. Right. And the reason I do that is because when I let out the dog, we get a lot of raccoons and stuff out there. So I wanted to know that if the lights are on, there's an animal out there. Right. And that's where I also use the DeepStack is I say only turn it on if an animal is detected at the side of the house and stuff. So the leaves blowing around won't trigger it and stuff like that. But I have it fully integrated with Habitat, even down to the point where I got like images showing up on my dashboard that I control the whole smart home with.
This is my problem with having you on, though, Gavin, because whenever I hear something cool, you're like, oh, yeah, I wrote that myself. I'm like, of course you did. Of course you wrote that yourself.
Like, ever need anything?
I'll share it with you.
Okay, perfect.
Bob Carpenter says, I wonder if someone has trained Blue Iris to detect ice cream trucks.
You could detect trucks. Yeah. You can detect truck. Like, it's funny because some in the modeling, they actually have detect. It's weird why they have banana, camel. It's like, why did they train it to even notice that? But you can train it. There's documentation out there how to create your own modeling, so it would only learn ice cream trucks and notify you of that.
I have that built-in detection with a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. I swear they can hear those things coming from a mile away. Dad running inside.
We haven't
out. Come on, please. Can I get some this time?
We haven't seen an ice cream truck in my neighborhood in 100 years. I don't.
Last summer we saw one quite a few in our neighborhood. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we just don't see one around here. I was thinking, man, when's the last time I saw an ice cream truck?
Ours is actually, we see the Kona guy more often. There's like a Kona truck that drives through our neighborhood, Kona Ice. Does like the freeze ice
Yeah.
with the flavoring
Yeah,
on
yeah,
top, and
yeah,
we
yeah.
see that guy quite a bit.
Listen, I wish a taco truck would come through my neighborhood on a regular basis. Like I'd buy tacos right off the yeah, I would be running out with the kids.
There you go.
So
Oh, burrito truck coming driving
Yeah,
through.
that'd
Game
be-
over.
last year before or year before when COVID hit, we actually contacted a food truck and had a food truck come to our neighborhood, park in front of our house, and we let the whole neighborhood know that
great
these
idea.
the grilled cheese guys are coming. Place your order, and it will be here on Friday for 3 hours. And they came, and they sold out. It was ridiculous, and it was a nice little in the middle of COVID type of thing we
Yeah.
did, and
Oh,
we did
yeah,
for
for
we
sure.
did for charity. So people brought like donations and stuff, and we gave it to a local
Great
food
idea.
bank. So if you ever need an idea to get to know your neighbors, meet your neighbors, that's a great
That's a
one
great
there.
idea.
That is a good idea. We do that at our work. We'll bring in the food trucks. They'll, I think during the summer, it's like every Tuesday and Wednesday, there's food trucks out there. But that's a really good idea to do the neighborhood. Our park's been doing a few things like that. But yeah, you're right. Good way to get everyone out of the house, and especially during
Yeah.
pandemic time.
Yeah. Bob says have a taco and ice cream truck travel in a group. Parents and children.
Yep.
That's working out.
I'm getting hungry now.
Alex says our neighborhood did a food truck thing as well. Yeah, I would, somebody taco truck came down the street with a little music playing. I'd go ride. Stop. It's so good. So good. Tony says, we had to undo it for a while in the cul-de-sac. Mike, you're on the cul-de-sac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Later, they wanted to guarantee a $1,500. Yeah. They gotta,
Gotta hit their minimums to drive out there, to prepare it, to have the food ready for that. I mean, that's
well, and this is one of those things where it's really popular the first time or two, and then people are kind of like, well, I don't know.
We had ours all called in advance and placed their
Yeah.
orders before that day. So he
Yeah.
called us the day. He says we're sold out. So everybody coming to pick it up. That's all we have.
Right.
So,
Right.
great.
Yeah. No, good stuff. So you get alerts. They pop. They just because of Cody, and they just pop onto your TV. How many alerts do you get?
It's only specific alerts.
Okay.
And then it's only if someone physically rings the doorbell, because that's when you want to see what's at the front door.
Right.
And then only if someone's walking up the driveway, right? It will show up. And even that one I just limit to a couple TVs, just really my office and the gym TV.
Yeah.
'Cause on the main TV, I don't care if someone's walking up the driveway, really.
The Ring cameras now have an integration with the website. So if you're logged into the website, you can enable notifications, and when somebody pops in, it will throw the video up as a notification up on your screen. So I've taken advantage of that. They've stopped supporting the Windows app. They just like, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Just use the website. And actually on the Mac side as well, they've stopped supporting the Mac app to do it. They just want you to go through the browser. The downside is you got to have your browser open all the time. Well, but I pretty much have a browser open all the time, right? I mean, so, you kind of think, well, so I've enabled notifications on this monitor and then my work monitor, so that no matter which way I'm facing, if I hear an alert come in, it'll, throw it in the corner, a little toast notification pops out. So that from a do nothing, like I did nothing for that. I just signed in and enabled the notifications. I think for folks who are just looking for a basic solution, I think that works pretty well.
Yeah. The Ring cameras, like I said, the Ring cameras are great cameras. I just wanted to take it up a little notch.
Right on
stuff. So
Tony also said that their neighborhood did a food truck and a cupcake. Wait a minute, there's cupcake trucks?
I didn't know that.
When did this happen? Like pretty soon they're going to be CBD trucks coming around.
They're offering delivery of delivery if you want anything. Same day delivery.
Yeah.
What's that app called? There's an app for that. Like a really popular one.
So trying to find a giant banana suit and walk up to somebody's driveway that has Blue Iris.
If they have it, and if they have the
banana,
they'll pick up a banana for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, and Alex said we need a beer truck. Like why that hasn't necessarily happened with all the restrictions that came down, especially here in the U.S. for alcohol being delivered. Why somebody didn't, barbecue and beer trucks together? Yeah,
Or we'll just show up at your barbecue with the beer truck.
Yeah, there you go. God, it'd be so great if they just came by and see ya. How good would that be? Gavin, anything else in this setup? We've gone through a huge chunk of them, but anything that I missed that you wanted to talk about in here? Any other things? Or Mike, any additional questions? You guys were getting into this in the pre-show. Anything else we didn't cover?
During the course of the show, I made a copy of my Sighthound VM's drive, renamed it so I can fire it back up as a different VM and do it with Blue Iris now because I want to go back and play with Blue Iris. So that's what I was doing during this show. Gavin called it.
He called it in the pre-show.
I forget how much power there is to Blue Iris, and I want to go play. So I'm going to go play.
And you got to remember, Blue Iris does have an iOS app. It has its own iOS app. It has, remote access. And one of the things I do utilize heavily is the profiles in Blue Iris. So again, it's integrated with my home setup. So when we leave the house, the hub detects nobody's home. It switches the profile on Blue Iris so that certain cameras will start notifying you or turn back on or turn off.
So like you want your indoor cameras to start notifying you now because we're not home, so someone shouldn't be in there, right?
Right. And it's motion or sound, right?
Okay.
And I can tweak how much sound because my dog likes to bark when we leave. So I have to turn off certain cameras, but the profiles are very powerful.
Well, so the only other thing I'll ask is, have they gotten any better? So my most common use case for most of the time, I'm not looking at my cameras. I probably open the app 2 times a day, 3 times a day, maybe, which I guess is a lot. But my most common use case is I go to my clips on Inside House, what they call them. So your stored footage, and I want to see all the people that day. So there's a filter. It says show people this date, and then here's just all the clips. And it is like so drop dead simple in the iOS app, and I don't see a bunch of garbage. Is it that simple on the Blue Iris app to just be able to say, just show me all the people, or just show me all the, trucks or whatever it is?
It kind of shows you all the notifications, but the notifications,
that's the part that drove me nuts.
If you have the AI enabled where it doesn't identify people or trucks or stuff, it shows a little icon on those notifications, so you can kind of go through and see the alerts of the people, and the regular alerts of just other motion.
Yeah. Okay. It's just like the quickest way for me to find when did the Amazon guy come. I go front door camera, people, and there's only like 3, right? Because there's only gonna be 3 times maybe that there were people by the front door, and so it's just been my number one go to. And so I think this is where I get stuck because I'm like, okay, I love the power, but then sometimes I just go back to I just want the things that I do every day to be easy.
Well, there's so many.
Sighthound keeps bringing me back in.
There's ways you can get around it. So when you have a camera hooked up to Blue Iris, right, it will be the main camera, but you can make copies of that camera, right? And the power comes in that all those copies aren't using any more CPU, right? They're using it doesn't increase your CPU at all, right? They're just copies of that same feed, right? But you can assign one copy to identify just people, and you can assign another copy just to alert on animals. And then you can hide the ones you want or create your own little dashboard of people identifying cameras.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Stuff like that. So there's so much power, so many things you can do it's just too much.
You want to spend the time.
Yeah, you just gotta spend the time.
Which I do. I want a project, so I'll end up doing it. All right. I'll report back.
Bob has an idea to a bourbon and humidor truck. That'd work. Oh, that should just be with the beer truck, just to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. Sarah would never see Jim anymore. It's like, she's like, I found a really good way to see all of Omaha. I just follow the bourbon and humidor truck. I've seen all of Omaha.
You know how your kids can sense the ice cream truck coming?
Yeah.
I'd be like, I think the cigar truck is coming.
Smells like Jefferson's, and wait for it.
Wait for it. It's coming. My neighbor,
say a brand of a cigar, but I didn't know any.
It's all right. The other day, my 2 neighbors were out talking, and so I was like, well, I never see them. I'm gonna go out and talk with them. So I walk out there, and one of them smoking a cigar, and I was like, hey. Why didn't you come?
We should be friends.
Why didn't you come by? Like, wait, is your hand hurt or something? You can't knock on my door or ring my doorbell? Like, he's like, oh, sorry. I'm like, come on. So he immediately got my number and said, I'll text you next time. So I said, yes. So I don't need a humidor truck. We could just do it in the neighborhood. Gavin, anything else on this?
No,
Anything?
we
It's
got
good
through it.
overview. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good overview. You gave Mike some homework over the weekend. He'll go back and forth about 4 or 5 times.
That's
on
always
this
my
thing.
goal when I come on this show is either get Mike to spend money or do work. Right.
Yeah.
And now it's probably gonna be both because now I'm looking at the Foscam doorbell.
Yeah, and I should really
Yeah.
get another ring. As I'm thinking about this, I'm looking at this sad dashboard that's got 3 squares and it's just begging for a fourth. I just need to figure out, I wanted to put one out on the shed, but it's too far away from the Wi-Fi. The changes I made for the when I went on the 5G, that moved farther away, not closer to it. So I don't really want to put anything out there battery operated Wi-Fi. It's just not going to be a great experience. I'm not going to get anything out there. Then the 2 sides of the houses, in theory, I could put cameras on those, but why? It's one of those kind of things you're like, I don't know if I'm that worried about it or I need it. I mean, I've just got I've got the deck, I've got the driveway, got the front door. It covers about 80% of the space that I really care about or I would really want to cover. The back deck one covers the shed now, so I can see that from there. Not great, but good enough. I redid the shed and kind of fortified the doors. I'm feeling pretty good about those. So somebody not breaking into that if that's an option.
I have one in the garage itself.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, maybe. And why? Just in case you leave the door open or
my garage, one, in case you leave the door open, you can verify that it's open or closed too, right? But we also have a separate entrance to our garage that, is not really covered by a camera. So if they ever came in through that other entrance, this would pick them up. And then as a side use, every fall, we seem to get little mice that like to come in there, right? And try and set up home. And usually my dog notifies me because he can smell it through the upstairs bathroom grill. So when he starts scrapping at that, I'm like, all right, set out some mice traps, and I get like 8 of them for some reason. But the camera will also pick them up running across. And so I utilize it for that as well.
Yeah, and I could use an indoor ring cam. Those aren't very expensive at all to do something like right.
Yeah. I actually use I'm actually still using, Jim, 2 of those Cox Home Life old cameras that we found. You had to go find the URL. You had to type in a very specific URL to unlock the UI. You need a very other specific URL to you need to use URL commands to get these things unlocked because they stripped the GUI. But I have that in my garage. That's the camera I look at the most.
Really?
Number one, him and I both use it for is the other person home because the car's in the driveway.
Yeah.
I check it every night did I close the garage door? We have the kids, so a lot of times they're out there playing in the driveway and we can see them running in and out, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's probably my favorite one. And that's the other good part is when it's up in the house, it's either getting really good Wi-Fi or for me, that was just a straight shot into the attic. It's right under my switch. Right. In the attic.
Yeah, and I used to have one of the D-Links was out in the garage, and I really liked that. And then I moved the Z-Moto out there for a while. The Z-Moto had the, it'd rotate, so you could get 180 or whatever it was worth of camera coverage. Gavin, do you have inside the house? I could never get the sign off from the boss on inside. Do you have anything in the house, and why?
I have the inside of the house. It's mainly for security. I had it set up so when we leave the house, it starts recording. When we're at the house, it's not recording. It's just me and the wife. But there have been times when she's like, the dog did something funny. She's like, did you catch it on camera? And I'd be like, so you want it recording now? Just this one. So if you ever, I wanted to see that video of him grabbing all the snacks off the counter, that type of thing, right? So it's come down to that. So we do have it inside. And again, it's just motion. I also use it as a motion sensor, sound sensors. So if glass breaks, the camera picks it up. I get notifications about when I'm not home. That type of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if, to be honest, I don't know if we've gone in the last 2 years a moment where nobody's here. We just don't leave. We have. I mean, even tonight we went out to dinner, so it does happen, but just doesn't seem to be as often. Yeah, I could. I put one inside the house one time, and it lasted about a week, and then I was like,
Yeah.
it's not good.
And secretly, I have one in the base. Not secretly, but I have one.
Oh, not anymore.
I mean, well, why I have it secretly, but it's like I have one in the basement, and
Yeah.
the main. I'm hoping one day to catch some ghosts or something like that on it.
Yeah.
Every now and then, I go through notifications. I'm like, did something move down there? You know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, is something weird happened down there? Because it only starts recording when we go to bed. That one will turn on.
Okay.
When we're in our night scene, I have that one turn on and monitor as well.
Yeah. Wonder if I could. We use this a lot when we were both going to work and nobody was home. Was the Amazon? Hey, we're gone. We're leaving, and it turns on and listens then for broken glass or some of those fire alarms. Those kinds of things.
We do that for
Wonder-
bed. We say, Madam A, good night, and
Yeah.
it signals my habitat to execute all the scenes and do
Right.
everything it needs to do.
Shut everything off.
Leaving the house and coming home, I have that all automated, so we don't have to do anything. It automatically picks all that up.
And that's one little quick tip there. So I do the same thing, Gavin, on A Lady. We have the good night command. So we say good night, and she executes turning all the lights off. But you can also, in those automations, you can go essentially say, when I say good night, turns off the lights. And then the next thing it does is almost pretend that I told you something else. Because for Simply Safe, there's a very specific command of tell Simply Safe good night. And that tells our Simply Safe to turn off. Well, I don't have to say that command after I've already said goodnight. So you just plug in tell Simply Safe goodnight, and it acts as if you verbally said that as the next action in those lists. So that's a good one. If you do have something on A Lady that needs a verbal command that's not part of the built-in automations, Simply Safe isn't one of those where you can just build it into the automation. You can just essentially it thinks you said it out loud, which is pretty cool. So then
so you have one device telling another device what to do? Is that what you're saying?
No, just so like if I tell A Lady, I say,
Right.
A Lady, tell Simply Safe goodnight. That is the command that it invokes the integration or whatever it's called, the skill. It invokes the Simply Safe skill. And then Simply Safe responds, would you like me to arm your system in home mode? And I say yes.
Okay.
So, and you can even set in pauses here so that the yes is built in too. But when you're building in the A Lady app, you're building out that automation. You can't invoke certain skills, and I can't invoke Simply Safe. But what you can do is you can just type in tell Simply Safe goodnight, and it acts as if you verbally said that to her. So when I say Alexa goodnight, she turns off all the lights, and then she goes, would you like me to arm your system in home mode? And I say, yep. Oops. Oh, it just heard me say that. I was like, am I hearing that to my headphones? It just asked. But yeah, that's our kind of home automation. So I had a little trick with A Lady automations is just type those in.
That's cool. Well, I think we've covered the gamut tonight on this. A good topic. It always gets me thinking. I think I'm going to set a slick deal alert for a ring indoor. That's probably the right place to do is put it in the garage and have it in a plug-in. I don't need a battery, just one of the plug-in ones. So
I got both of you to spend money tonight. Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you successful.
Did. Gavin, nice work. Gavin, thanks for coming back and sharing this with us, and thanks for being a listener and all those great things as well. It's great to have you on here. Home Tech FM, if you want to get more Gavin and more of that. Is that do you think you guys are more technical from a show standpoint? Do you get pretty technical?
The show's I'd say the show's still kind of evolving a bit. It's going from talking about the news to now like stuff happening in the industry to now we're starting to feature a little more stuff. Like recently, I added some monitoring to my dryer, and I found a really cool device that allows me to integrate it with my home hub. That's using monitoring of the amperage through the power. I won't spoil it. You can go to hometech.fm and find the episode.
Yeah, there we go.
There's
a little teaser for you if you want to go out there and get that done. Hometech.fm. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Christian's on next week, talking about his home theater setup. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then I think Marv B is joining us for kind of a relaunch of his podcast. He got it going, then had to pull it back. His mom had some health problems. He's going to be relaunching it here in the beginning of March, and so we're going to talk about that as well as he comes back. And then Ryan reached out to me from Ryan and Bob from Think Computers. And he was like, okay, tonight's the night, or it was yesterday. He was like, are we on for? I was like, no, it's March. And he's like, oh, I didn't read. So March and February have the exact same dates, right? So the 3rd of March, Ryan and Bob are back. So we appreciate you, and we appreciate you for listening. We'll do a little bit of a post show if you're hanging around live. And I guess with that, we'll say goodnight, everybody. Gavin, thanks, man.
Oh, it was great.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I got both of you to spend some money.
Oh
I
yeah.
haven't spent it yet, but and I'm gonna.
You're going to.
I'm gonna. Yeah, I gotta fill in that other spot in my. I got 3 and a 4 square, and that just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I have one spot outside that I want to fill, one more, and that's the last one I want to put in there.
Yeah, you're just kind of like, I need this complete. And then what always happens is you complete it, and then you're like, oh, I have to add one more here, and I got to buy another one. Pretty soon you have 10.
Yeah,
guys.
Mm-hmm.
So Tony says, or Alex says, great show, awesome show, guys. Thanks, Alex. Tony's Gavin, that was awesome. Thanks for coming out. It was great having you.
On my Twitter, actually, he's been messaging me through the show.
Listen,
oh yeah,
Tony is a Twitter giant. That guy.
I don't know. I don't know if he's ever at home. Right? Like that's what I always wondered about this guy.
He vacations to the best spots, I swear. He's on vacation
from across the country. I'm like, did he take these over his life and he's now just showing them to us now, pretending he's there? Right? I'm like, how did you make it that far in that amount of time and work?
Agreed.
I know. Oh, and
he works more than all of us. Yeah,
that's a lot.
He works a lot.
We've had him on the show a couple times, and whenever he's on, you kind of, from his Twitter and all the stuff he does, you kind of, think he's going to be this kind of loud, obnoxious guy. He's just like, hey, what's going on? How's it going? So, Tony, thanks for all that you do, man. I always appreciate it. He's just super creative on the Twitter side. Like he always tweets something that Mike and I say, or he gets a picture and he tweets it. And that's just super cool. That's creativity I just don't have. I'm just terrible at that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, Tony, thanks for doing that.
One question for you, Jim.
Yeah.
What mic are you using that's so quiet that you're always... I never hear you moving.
Oh, yeah. Part of it's the arm. So it's this is the Rode.
Oh,
the Rode arm. So, it's the more expensive one. But not too bad. But I also don't, like, you could hear it if I was...
Oh yeah,
I almost always just put it off to the side.
Oh, I got it.
So you don't, go. I'm pivoting it this way on the arm, so there's almost no moving parts on it. But that being said, these ATR 2100s are pretty quiet. Mike's got,
they're really good.
I
love these mics.
They have some good. You can barely hear the handling of them. You just don't. You can.
Yeah.
Like you can hear that a little bit, but
when I reinstalled my Go XLR, Jim, I noticed this last week too. I'll have to remind me before next week's show to play with the gain a little bit. So it reset all my mic settings, and I've noticed. I mean, I don't know if you guys, because when my it's not on right now, but when my heater's on, it seems like the gain is too hot because it's picking up. I can hear it in my headphones.
I hear your gate kicking in. I hear your gate kicking in when that happens. Don't you have a gate on that?
Yeah,
that
I do.
XLR
I
has
have
a
a
gate.
gate,
Right?
yeah.
I hear that gate kick in.
And I think that's because my gain's too high. It shouldn't hear that anyway. These ATRs are pretty good about.
Well, they're super gain hungry though. They do
You
require a lot of gain. You got to crank it hard. Yeah, you might. I mean, you could put a cloud lifter in there. That would kind of help give it some additional. For another $100, you could.
Well, I can give it more gain. It's not even maxed out on gain.
Oh.
Right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My gate's always kicked in when that thing's on.
Yeah,
just because
I can hear on it. I always hear you sound a little fuzzy. It cleans up pretty fast, but
and then it goes,
and then I have a beer and I don't remember anything after that.
So that's an ATR 2100.
Yeah, it's a 2100. What do you have?
It's an old Shure BG 1.1. Like I've had it for many years. It works well. I just like
what are you processing it through?
That's what I was wondering. What's your interface?
Is Behringer UMC 202 HD.
Okay.
202 HD.
Yeah. So like it's straight into it's a USB
mixer, right?
Behringer 202 what?
202 HD.
HD.
Yeah, it's a UMC 202 HD.
Oh yeah, two port.
Yep.
And does it have the controls on the top? No, they're on the front.
Yeah.
They're
So
on the front, right?
you get
Yeah.
the clipping, you get the padding and the line instrument and the monitoring. But I just like because when you as a podcasting thing, right? When you move your mic away,
Yes.
it's like says to us that you're not ready to talk. But then when you bring it back, it's like I have something to say now, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm finding with the other guys that I would like to do is that like, when I bring the mic forward, I want to have something. I have something to say,
Yeah.
Right now, I just wave my hand to them and over the video, right?
Yeah, it's a little trick. I don't even think about it that much anymore.
Yeah.
But I always tell if I have a new host or whatever, I'll say as you're talking, especially if they have a presentation, I'll move my mic away.
But I don't hear that. That's exactly the thing.
Right. And then I'll say as I move it back. Now, part of it is too, I have a shock mount on here. This is a little on studio.
Yeah, I have a shock mount on this one too.
That's just a really good arm too you have, Jim.
It is quiet. It's super quiet. Yeah. Yeah.
Because mine's good if I go up or down. Well, you might be able to hear the moving it now. The microphone's picking it up, but squeaks like.
Yeah, you got to get this one is super because I'm just rotating and it's on the base that's all the way over there. So it's just easy to, and I'm gentle. I mean, I do it a lot. So some of it, Gavin, is just it's a super gentle.
Yeah,
because I do this all the time. I mean, I'm on now at least once a day. It seems like. So
I didn't hear that.
Well,
only when you let go.
You're moving and in the way you have your configured, you're actually moving the center pivot, which that's going to make noise. In this case, it's really just rotating on the base. So it's got the pin on the base, and it's just that pin that's rotating. So it's super far away, and there's no moving parts. So it just doesn't make any noise.
Weekend project for me, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. You could just test it.
Oh, I'm setting a Blue Iris. You're going to be messing with your microphone mount.
Just test it, and then you could also, Gavin, go with the Samsung 2QU. This is a really good mic. And they're like $60-$70. So they're the same price as the Audio Technicas. Little more bass in it than the Audio Technicas, not much.
Okay.
And it's same thing. USB, it's the same exact thing. It's USB and XLR.
Okay, because I use the XLR.
Yeah. So this is a good, for in that range. Those are both really good mics to have if you're thinking about doing something different. If you buy it at Sweetwater or Amazon and you try it and you decide you don't like it, you can always send it back. It's
exactly. I think it's more my arm. My arm makes a lot of.
You don't have a gate or anything though, do you? On your on that audio interface doesn't have a gate built into it at all, does it? Where it's limiting the sound in some way, or are you doing any processing on your sound?
When we do the podcast though, Seth does some audio processing to filter out stuff like that. So he does that. And then you mentioned a program I was playing with. Oh, that filters out noises.
The NVIDIA one.
No, another one. I have it installed.
The NVIDIA one's insane if you have a 30 series card or higher.
But so are you so for us right now, are we just taking the sound that's coming off of the audio interface?
Yeah.
And there's no processing being done on it.
No.
Because I do hear a little squishiness when you first start talking. It's a little squishy and then it clears up. And it almost sounded like you had some audio processing on it. That's what I thought is maybe you were running it through a DBX something.
It's straight into the interface, USB.
That could be. I think what I'm hearing is the compression that we're getting on StreamYard. So that's very possible. Let me check your sound settings here.
Because usually I could do this. I can. Oh, you can't. I thought it was on Zoom. I can give you the uncompressed audio on Zoom, but we usually record our own vocal tracks.
Yeah,
and
I'm too lazy for that. I'm too lazy. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, what I love about the gate is like, so if I stop talking, then I start, and you hear how now that I'm talking, you can hear it, but I stop talking.
Yeah, I'm not. I
I
just
was doing the same tapping.
I'm
It
not
just
a
there's like
fan
gate
of.
just shuts it right down because it's
Not
not
a
loud
fan
enough.
of gates.
Yeah.
I-
Well, you
it
know what I just
works for
noticed when you said
you.
my gate was being weird?
Yeah.
The attack was super slow, meaning it wasn't attack. It was like fading in. And so
Yeah.
now I set it to just 10 milliseconds. So now mine should be on off. It should be really or should be on and just like without fading up into it. So maybe it'll be a little bit better.
Crisp. That's the tool that I think you
Oh,
mentioned.
crisp.
Yes, you mentioned recently that I was playing with actually to eliminate any background noise because the wife always wants to run in the house and hey doggy, yeah, you know, the background, especially when I'm recording, right?
Yeah.
I was playing with that, but I kind of like just getting the raw audio and working with it because I
Yeah.
don't want because you can fix that, but you can't fix if Chris processed it wrong, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So that's why I always think just the raw audio.
I
The
should
only thing-
probably.
well,
Oh, go ahead,
yeah.
Mike.
The gate for me is something you can't. It's super annoying to take that out in post because if I'm not talking and you guys hear the background noise or whatever, the gate would have shut it all off and it would never would have gotten into the file in the first place. But you're right, like my compressor, I go back and forth whether I like my compressor or not, where it's doing that squishing. You can do all that in post. The gate I do like on my end. It also helps with the keyboard tapping because you guys can hear that while I'm talking.
Yeah,
but not anymore
right
once
on.
I stop because
Right
my
on.
gate stops it. Right.
Is that built into the interface?
So that's on my Go XLR. Yeah, and then
Oh,
you set it all. You set it all there, so you mess with it. But I just like it because the tapping alone isn't loud enough to open the gate, but my voice is. So that's why you only hear my tapping when I'm talking. But I'm not talking. The tapping itself, you don't pick it up.
Yeah, the other thing I have is I have a stream deck. So usually when I'm not talking, I just press the button to mute myself.
To
right?
mute yourself. Yeah. Or you can really good at that.
Right. Seth appreciates that in post production, right?
Oh, for sure.
But usually with that, I would have two, like Adobe Audition, I'd be recording two tracks. One's recording all the time, and one's the track I would use that I cut in and out the recording. And the only reason I do that is because there's times when I didn't get to that button fast enough. So then I just flag it and then I go back and then I just take the audio and fix it up there too, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that works. I don't have the time to spend that. Well, because we do video, there's no way I'm going to do that on the video side. That's 100 years worth of work for nothing. And then on the audio side, I just like, it's fine. It's good enough for what I do. Everybody who listens now is like I've weeded out the ones who wanted perfect sound long time ago. So everybody's just
smart.
Yeah. Everybody's just kind of like, it's fine. It'll be fine. I probably should pay for the premium on StreamYard to get separate tracks. But that would be okay. I'd have to download the video. I have to go put those all together, then snap it into the video. And I'm just like, no, this is just fine.
Yeah,
this is just fine. Yeah, super good. So, guys, if you're listening live, thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate you and you guys for doing that. We'll be back next week with Christian. So join us 8 p.m. Central, and we'll see you next week.